The older I get, the quieter I become. Not just with my voice, but with how I carry pain, joy, and realization. Somewhere along the way, life stops shouting and starts whispering. And the whispers, well, they're the ones that really stick. They visit in the middle of the night when the house is still, when you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling and wondering, why didn't anyone tell me this earlier? It's not the wrinkles that surprise you, not even the slower steps or the graying hair. It's the quiet truths, things you only begin to understand when you've lived long enough to look back and say, so that's what that meant. And I know if you're listening right now, chances are you felt it too. That ache that doesn't always come from your joints, but from lessons you wish you'd known decades ago. So today, I want to give voice to those truths. The kind older adults carry quietly. The ones not found in textbooks, not said at family dinners, not even whispered in most conversations. But they live in us. In the silences between birthdays. In the moments of stillness that come with age. And maybe, just maybe, one of these lessons will give you permission to let go, to breathe easier, to stop carrying what was never yours to begin with. Let's start here. Letting go doesn't mean losing. I wish someone had told me that when I was younger. That moving on isn't betrayal. That's wisdom. Because the truth is we carry so much with us. Old identities, routines that no longer fit, people who drifted away long ago, and even pain that's become oddly familiar. We cling, not because we need these things now, but because once upon a time, they made us feel safe, loved, important. Take Roger, for example. He's 74 now. When his wife, Marlene, passed away 5 years ago, he kept everything in their home exactly the same. Her robe still hung behind the bathroom door. Her favorite mug sat untouched on the shelf. Her perfume, one she always wore on Sundays, still stood on the dresser. He said it brought him comfort. But over time, the comfort shifted into something heavier. The house felt colder, somehow emptier, despite all the objects still in place. Then, one afternoon, his great-granddaughter came over, and, while playing near the dresser, accidentally knocked over that perfume bottle. It shattered. And so did Roger. But not in the way you'd think. He didn't cry because of grief. He cried because of the release. That bottle wasn't Marlene. The real love, their shared jokes, late-night talks, the way she always made tea just a bit too sweet, that love was inside him. Not trapped in a scent or a robe or a mug. Letting go of those things didn't mean letting go of her. It meant making space for her memory to breathe, not stay frozen. That's what we forget. Letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about making room for who you are now, not just who you were then. Ask yourself, what are you still holding on to not because you need it, but because you're afraid of who you'll be without it? Now let's talk about something that cuts even deeper. The pain of being kind to the wrong people. You see, kindness is beautiful. It's one of our greatest gifts. But when given endlessly to the wrong people, it starts to hurt. Not all at once. Slowly. Quietly. Like a slow leak you don't notice until your drain dry. I think of Marie, 67, a retired nurse, the kind of woman who'd give her last clean towel to a neighbor or stay up all night baking cookies for the church fair. But her story is about her youngest son, Chris. Chris struggled for years with addiction, with direction, with honesty. And Marie, bless her heart, never stopped giving. Money, shelter, forgiveness. She canceled vacations, sold family jewelry, even dipped into the savings she'd planned for her own care, all to support him, even when he didn't change. Friends told her, "You're doing too much." But Marie always said, "I can't give up on him. I'm his mother." And I understand that. I really do. But one day, she collapsed in her kitchen. Exhaustion. Malnutrition, stress. She woke up in a hospital bed, for in her arm, and for the first time, realized something that broke her heart even more than Chris ever did. She hadn't given up on her son, she'd given up on herself. You see, love doesn't mean losing yourself. Compassion doesn't mean sacrificing your boundaries. And forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone hurt you again and again without consequence. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone and for yourself is walk away. You weren't weak for being generous. You were hopeful. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. But wisdom means learning when kindness is no longer helping. It's enabling. And when your heart keeps giving, but your spirit is breaking, it's time to choose yourself. And here's another one that hits hard. Not everyone thinks like you. That might sound obvious, but if you've ever felt hurt, really hurt, by someone who just didn't show up the way you would have, then you know what I'm talking about. It's one of the most painful realizations in life, that the people we love might not love us the way we love them. James, a retired teacher from Wisconsin, was turning 75. He planned a small birthday dinner, made his favorite beef stew, set the table with the good plates. He even ironed the cloth napkins, something his wife used to always do. He told his kids about it 3 weeks in advance. But 2 of them canceled an hour before. Something came up, they said. And James? He smiled. He served the food anyway, ate alone, washed the dishes, sat out on the porch afterward, holding his cup of tea with both hands, whispering, "I would never have done that to them." And that's the real wound. It's not just that they didn't come. It's the silent thought, why don't they think like I do? But here's the hard truth. Not everyone has your heart. Not everyone values loyalty the way you do. Not everyone listens with full attention, or keeps their word, or loves with the same depth. And expecting them to. Well, that's what causes the real heartbreak. But this doesn't mean you should change who you are. Your kindness? Your care? That's not a flaw, it's your strength. But peace, real peace, comes when you release the belief that others should reflect you. They won't. And that's okay. Because your value isn't measured by how others treat you. It's measured by how you continue to show up with love, even when it isn't mirrored back. Stay with me, because in the next part, we'll talk about something many of us face, but few admit. Try to fix someone who doesn't believe they're broken, and the freedom that comes when you finally stop. Now let's talk about something so many of us have tried to do, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. Fix someone who doesn't even think they need fixing. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's a reality that quietly breaks so many hearts, especially in families. Maybe it was your brother, your daughter, your husband. You saw the problem clear as day, the anger, the control, the unwillingness to listen. And so you tried. You had the talks, the gentle nudges, the tears. You gave books, offered help, maybe even brought up therapy. But the response? A shrug. Or worse, a denial that anything was wrong. And that moment when they looked you in the eye and said, "You're just too sensitive," or "That never happened," that moment cuts deeper than most realize. Lillian, a retired librarian I once met at a senior group in Colorado Springs, told me a story that stuck. Her younger brother, Peter, was always critical, always dismissive. For years, he controlled every conversation, made her feel small, rewrote their childhood as if she were imagining the pain. And Lillian? She tried. She sent him birthday cards even when he forgot hers, called on holidays, bought him a book on emotional abuse, slipped it into his mailbox with a little sticky note that said, "Thought you might enjoy this." But Peter never changed. In fact, the more she tried, the more he pulled away. And one day, standing in her kitchen, Lillian looked up from her cup of tea and said out loud, to no one in particular, "I don't think he's ever going to say sorry." That was the beginning of her freedom. Because here's the truth no one tells you. You can't fix what they won't even admit is broken. People don't change just because you try harder. They change when they're ready. And some people, they never are. That doesn't make you a failure. It makes you someone who tried with all your heart. But wisdom means knowing when to stop pouring into a cup that has no bottom. You can love someone from a distance. You can care and still walk away. You can even forgive them without ever getting the apology you deserved. And that brings us to something that, in my opinion, is one of the greatest gifts of growing older. The quiet, powerful freedom of not caring what others think of you anymore. Now don't get me wrong, we all care, at least a little. We care what our kids say about us to their friends. We care how the neighbors perceive us. We care when someone looks at our life and asks, "Why aren't you doing more?" Or worse, still doing that at your age. But eventually there comes a day when you just stop. Not out of bitterness, out of peace. There's a man named Ed, 76, lives in Portland. For most of his life, He worried about being judged. Never danced. Not at weddings. Not at parties. Said he felt awkward, like people were laughing at him. And then one day, at his granddaughter's wedding, the DJ played a song she used to sing with him when she was 5, Lean on Me. Without thinking, Ed stood up. He walked to the middle of the dance floor. And he danced. Was it graceful? Not really. He shuffled. He swayed. But you know what? He smiled. He laughed. And when he sat back down, a teenager came up to him and said, "That was awesome. I hope I'm like you when I'm older." That moment changed him. Because Ed didn't just dance, he broke free. He stopped editing himself for a crowd that wasn't even watching. And that's real freedom. The kind that says, I don't owe anyone an explanation for my joy, or my grief, or my choices, or my pace. Because here's the thing, you've already paid your dues. You've raised children, paid bills, gone through loss, survived change after change. You've earned the right to live for yourself now. Not in a selfish way, but in a way that honors your spirit. And yet, even when we find that freedom inside, there's something else that quietly affects how we feel about ourselves, how we look. Now, I know appearance might sound like a strange thing to focus on at this stage of life, but it matters not for vanity, but for self-respect. Somewhere along the line, many of us stop looking in the mirror. We say, what's the point, or no one notices anyway. And yet, there's something powerful, almost sacred, about taking a little time for ourselves each morning. Brushing our hair, putting on a clean shirt, dabbing a little cologne or a bit of lipstick. Not for them, for us. Let me tell you about Dorothy. She's 69, widowed, lives alone in a small cottage near the lake. After her husband passed, she stopped dressing up, wore the same sweatshirt for days, let her curls go wild, didn't bother with lotion or lipstick anymore. And she told her daughter, why bother? No one's looking. But one spring afternoon, her daughter took a candid photo of her out in the garden. The sun was hitting her face just right. There was this little half smile on her lips, wind tugging at her hair. And when Dorothy saw it, she teared up. I forgot she was still in there, she whispered. That was the turning point. She didn't go out and buy expensive clothes. She didn't dye her hair. She just began to care again about how she felt in her own skin. A clean outfit, a fresh scent, a bit of color on her lips. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about telling herself, I'm still here. I still matter. You see, elegance isn't about cost. It's about intention. And in this chapter of life, taking care of our appearance isn't shallow. It's a strength. It's saying, I still honor this face, this body, this presence. But sometimes the most elegant thing you can do, the most respectful thing, is not about putting something on. It's about taking something off. Like when you take off the weight of broken promises and decide it's finally time to leave. That's what we're going to talk about next. How to recognize when it's not a one-time mistake, but a pattern. And how to walk away without guilt. Because your loyalty is beautiful, but it should never become a leash. Stay with me. The next part may be the hardest, but it's also the most freeing. There's something no one prepares you for in this life. The day you realize someone's apology doesn't mean anything anymore. Not because you're cold. Not because you stopped caring. But because the words have worn thin. The promises have piled up and crumbled. And you finally see the pattern. You see, there's a difference between a mistake and a habit. A mistake has regret in it. Growth. A desire to do better. But a pattern? A pattern says, this is just who I am. Get used to it. And the saddest part? We often do. Especially those of us who were raised on loyalty, on duty, on sticking it out. We were taught to give people the benefit of the doubt. To wait. To hope. To stay quiet and be kind. But sometimes that kindness becomes a cage. Let me tell you about Leonard. He's 71 now, lives in a quiet part of New Hampshire. Leonard had a friend, Paul. They'd known each other for over 40 years. Grew up together, served in the same unit, even started a small business in their 30s. But as time passed, Paul changed. Or maybe, Leonard just started to see what had been there all along. Paul only called when he needed something. He borrowed money and never paid it back. He canceled plans at the last minute, made jokes that stung, but laughed them off with a "come on, don't be so sensitive." And Leonard? He forgave. Again and again. Until one afternoon, after Paul bailed on a lunch for the 5th time that year, Leonard sat there in the little booth by the window, 2 iced teas, untouched, and something in him shifted. Not anger, not resentment, just clarity. He thought, I would never treat him this way. That sentence, right there, is the turning point for so many of us. It's not about whether they meant to hurt you. It's about whether they valued you enough not to. Leonard didn't call Paul after that. He didn't make a big announcement. He didn't write a dramatic goodbye message. He just stopped waiting. And in doing so, he started healing. Because here's the truth. The years you have left are too precious to keep giving to people who don't see your worth. You don't owe anyone unlimited chances. Not because you're bitter, but because you finally decided to protect your peace. Leaving doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to stop confusing loyalty with self-sacrifice. It means choosing quiet over chaos, clarity over confusion, healing over hoping someone else will suddenly treat you better. But even when we know it's time to leave, even when the pattern is clear, there's still one thing that tries to pull us back: guilt. It's sneaky, isn't it? That little voice in your head whispering, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I'm just being too sensitive. Maybe I should give them one more chance. Let me say this clearly. If something feels wrong over and over again, it probably is. And if you find yourself questioning your memory, your judgment, or your right to feel hurt, that's not love. That's a red flag. Sometimes the deepest healing doesn't come from a confrontation. Sometimes it comes from a quiet moment of truth when you finally whisper to yourself, I've had enough. And that leads us into something that doesn't always look or feel powerful at first, but is maybe the most powerful act of all: moving on. Now, I don't mean storming out, slamming doors, cutting people off dramatically. I mean the quiet kind of moving on. The one where you stop checking your phone for their message. The one where you stop rehearsing what you'd say if they finally apologized. The one where you no longer need them to see your pain in order for it to be real. Forgiveness is a complicated thing, isn't it? We think it means saying, it's okay, when it's not. But that's not real forgiveness. Real forgiveness isn't about pretending. It's about releasing. You can forgive someone without telling them. You can forgive without inviting them back into your life. You can forgive and still protect your heart, your peace, your future. Diana, 73, told me this once. Her sister had hurt her deeply. Years of comparison, criticism, cold shoulders. They hadn't spoken in over a decade. One morning, Diana lit a candle in her kitchen, placed it beside a photo of them as kids, and whispered, I forgive you. I release you. I release myself. She didn't send a letter, didn't call. She just breathed easier. Because forgiveness isn't a gift for the person who hurt you. It's a gift for your nervous system, for your sleep, for your spirit. It says, I will not carry this pain into tomorrow. That's what moving on really is. It's not denial. It's not pretending. It's choosing peace without waiting for someone else to hand it to you. It's walking forward even when you didn't get the closure you deserved. Because sometimes closure isn't a door they close. It's when you close quietly from your side. And let me say this to you directly. You don't need permission to choose peace. You've earned it. In fact, you may be the only one who can give it to yourself. So maybe today's the day. Maybe you light your own candle. Maybe you write a letter you never send. Maybe you stand at your window and say softly, I forgive you and I'm done waiting. Because what's coming next in your life deserves space. It deserves energy. It deserves a version of you that isn't carrying the weight of someone else's denial or disrespect. And that's why in our next part, we'll turn from the emotional to the physical. We'll talk about something most people overlook until it quietly starts to erode the freedom we've worked our whole lives to protect: our health habits. The small daily things that can either nourish our independence or slowly take away. Stay with me, because this next part isn't about fear, it's about freedom, and the everyday actions that help us claim it. Let's take a deep breath together. You've made it through some of the hardest truths about relationships, boundaries, forgiveness, and now we shift focus from the heart to the body, but not in a way that shames or overwhelms. I want this part to feel like a gentle friend walking beside you, reminding you it's not too late. Not at all. You see, our bodies start whispering new things to us after 60. They don't shout. They don't always warn. But over time, if we don't listen, we notice stiffness where there used to be ease, fog where there used to be clarity, a quiet fatigue that lingers even after a good night's rest. And one of the biggest culprits? Too much couch time. Now let's be honest, we've earned our rest. We've worked hard. We deserve afternoons with a book, evenings by the window, our favorite chair, our favorite show. But the body, it wasn't designed to sit still for hours on end. Mildred, 70, thought her daily walk was enough. 30 minutes around the block every morning. Check. But the rest of her day? Reading, TV, scrolling through her tablet, chatting with friends on the phone. Nothing wrong with any of that. But the issue was the hours in between, the long stretches of stillness. And then she noticed her legs felt weaker, her knees more stubborn, her back stiffer. Her doctor gently explained, "Mildred, movement isn't just about exercise. It's about consistency, micro movements." So she made one small shift, set a gentle alarm on her phone every 45 minutes, just to stand up, stretch, walk to the kitchen, breathe deeply. That's it. And in a few weeks, her body thanked her. Movement is life, and stillness in large doses isn't rest. It's slow decay. So today, maybe you stand up, right now, roll your shoulders, stretch your spine, walk to the window and back. Your body will say, thank you. Now let's talk about something you've heard a million times, but probably never truly reevaluated after turning 60. Protein. In our younger years, we could get by with toast and jam for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, maybe soup for dinner. But after 60, our bodies become less efficient at using the protein we give it. So we need more of it just to keep what we already have. No dramatic changes needed. Just a few shifts. Maybe an extra boiled egg in the morning. Some beans in your soup. A small handful of almonds. Greek yogurt. Tofu. Chicken. A protein shake on days you don't feel like cooking. Think about this. Can you sit in a chair, cross your arms, and stand up without using your hands? If not, or if your knees wobbled or your thighs trembled, your body is whispering, feed me better. Protein is not just for athletes. It's for independence. It's for strength, for balance, for the ability to carry your own groceries and stand tall with confidence. Now we move into something even more sacred than food, sleep. There's a myth we hear all the time after 60. I don't need as much sleep anymore. That's just aging. But that's not truth. That's resignation. Sleep becomes more important as we age. It's the time our brain repairs, our heart rests, our cells renew. And without it, everything starts to unravel, just slowly enough that we don't notice. Howard, 73, told me he was waking up groggy, more forgetful, snapping at his wife for no reason. Just getting old, he said. But his doctor said otherwise. You're not broken, Howard. You're just not sleeping deep enough to heal. So he changed a few simple things. No screens an hour before bed. Tea earlier, not right before sleep. Phone in the drawer. Dimmed lights. Silence. And within 2 weeks, he felt like himself again. Not younger, just more present. Tonight, when the stars rise, turn toward sleep not as an escape, but as healing. You deserve that. Your future depends on it. Now here's a big one. Walking isn't enough after 70. I know that's hard to hear. Walking is wonderful. It keeps the heart pumping, the spirit lifted. But it doesn't challenge the muscles. It doesn't train your balance. It doesn't keep your core strong or your joints stable. If all you do is walk, your frame begins to weaken. Your stability quietly slips away. That's how falls happen, not because we're clumsy, but because we stopped practicing balance. Geraldine, 76, walked daily. Rain or shine. But one small trip off the curb, and suddenly she didn't trust her own feet. That loss of confidence? It changes everything. So she started simple. Bodyweight squats near the sink, standing on one foot while brushing her teeth, holding a chair and doing light leg lifts. No gym, no special equipment, just consistency. And soon, she wasn't just standing taller. She felt safer in her body, more at home in her own skin. Because balance isn't about perfection, it's about recovery. If you've been walking every day but haven't done strength or balance training in years, this is your invitation. You don't need to do it all, just a little every day. You'll be amazed at how quickly your body remembers. Let's talk water. Most people think if they're not thirsty, they're fine. But thirst? It's not the first sign of dehydration. It's the last. And as we age, the body stops giving us those early clues. Martha, 75, told me her afternoons were always foggy. Her thinking is slow. Her legs cramped at night. She figured it was age. But her doctor said something else. You're not fading. You're just running dry. So she began a quiet ritual. A full glass of water every morning before coffee. A bottle always within reach. Cucumber slices in her lunch. A few sips every hour, not chugging, just awareness. And soon, her energy lifted. Her joints ached less. Even her skin looked brighter. It's like watering a garden I didn't know was thirsty, she said. Try it now. Pinch the skin on the back of your hand. Hold it for a second. If it doesn't bounce back quickly, that's your body quietly asking for care. Hydration is not just about avoiding illness. It's about clarity, about smoother movement, about feeling truly alive in your body again. So let's bring this all together. Move more. Sit less. Feed your muscles with care. Sleep like it's your medicine. Strengthen your balance like your life depends on it, because it does. And sip water like it's sacred, because it is. These aren't giant overhauls. They're small, loving rituals. Little acts of reverence. Each one whispers, I'm still here. I still matter. I still choose life. You've come through so much. Grief, change, silence, strength. And now, at this stage of life, you don't owe the world performance. You owe yourself presence. Let's travel lighter. Let go of what no longer serves you. Speak to your body with kindness. Tend to it like a garden, because it's still listening and it will respond. And now, I'd love to hear from you. What's one small, loving change you're going to make this week? Maybe it's standing up every 30 minutes. Maybe it's adding protein to your breakfast. Maybe it's drinking that extra glass of water before lunch. Share it in the comments, because your words might be the one thing someone else needed to hear today. And if this video spoke to something true in you, please share it with someone you love. We're all walking this path together, and none of us is too old, too late, or too far gone to start again. You are not declining. You are deepening. So let's keep walking. Gently, proudly, together.